Welcome back to the Crime Documentary Files channel. Today we continue with a case that took place in the village of Zhujiang, Shandong Province, China. On the afternoon of May 28, 2018, a man was looking for a fishing spot along the banks of the Siwan River near Zhujiang village in Shandong Province. As he walked along the river, he suddenly noticed a bulging suitcase drifting close to the riverbank. The water wasn't very deep here, and since the suitcase looked relatively new, he thought perhaps someone had dropped it by accident, or that there might be something valuable or usable inside. For those who follow true crime documentaries, this is often a signal that something ominous may be inside. However, this man didn't think that way. Eagerly, he waded into the water to pull the suitcase to the shore, feeling pleased as it felt quite heavy. As he unzipped part of the suitcase, he saw something inside wrapped in transparent plastic bags, tied securely with rubber bands. So, he unzipped the suitcase entirely and tried to pull it out to see what it was. As you can see in this scene, the man was horrified, throwing the plastic-wrapped contents and the suitcase in opposite directions. At around 3:30 p.m. on May 28th, police from Zhujiang, Shandong Province, arrived at the Siwan riverbank. Crime scene investigators began taking the man's statement about how he discovered the body. Inside the suitcase was a severely decomposed body, curled up tightly and wrapped in multiple layers of transparent plastic bags. The preliminary on-site examination revealed that the victim was female, approximately 5 feet 1 inch tall, and weighing about 99 pounds, with long hair about 18 inches in length. She was wearing a white t-shirt with blue sleeves, and the shirt had an Adidas logo on the chest. The victim was barefoot and had multiple wounds on her neck, one of which was around 1.4 inches long and very deep, identified as the fatal injury. Due to the prolonged time since death, the body was too decomposed to identify, and there were no identification papers on the person or in the suitcase. The forensic report determined the victim had died approximately 45 days prior, and she was estimated to be between 25 and 29 years old. The neck wounds were consistent with those inflicted by a dagger. Given the extended time in water, there was seepage into the plastic bags wrapping the body, and the victim had been submerged in river water for many days. The victim's hair, fingernails, and toenails were almost entirely detached. As you can observe here, these are clumps of the victim's hair that detached, styled in loose curls dyed red-brown with trendy blonde highlights at the ends. Now, the first and most critical step is to identify the body, which will allow the investigation to progress toward uncovering the cause of death and identifying the perpetrator. The stretch of river where the suitcase was found is located east of Zhujiang village, in the outskirts of Weifang city. This section of the river is part of the lower course of the Siwan River, flowing from east to west with a slow and steady current. It has an average depth of about 8 to 16 feet. Based on the terrain here, police ruled out the possibility that the suitcase had floated downstream from the upper course, as the upper course is shallow and has many rough rocks, while this suitcase was still very new, without any scratches or dents from friction. Only in the lower course where the suitcase was discovered is the water deepest and relatively still, which might have allowed the suitcase to remain there for 45 days without significant collisions or scratches. Determining that this was the location where the killer disposed of the body, rather than it having floated downstream, the police mobilized a broad search in the area where the body was found. They also used lawn mowers to clear out bushes and grass along the riverbank, hoping to uncover additional evidence or new clues. The search efforts extended to the dam near the eastern part of this river section, as it could have been the spot where the killer threw the suitcase into the water. Any floating objects on the river were retrieved for examination, but after 2 days of searching around the area, the police found no valuable evidence or leads. They split into smaller teams to question residents who frequently pass through or live near the location. Some locals informed the police that they had noticed the suitcase floating in the river as early as late April, but they assumed it was just trash someone had discarded and didn't think much of it. The section of the river where the body was discovered is quite far from the main road, situated within Zhujiang village and surrounded by many other villages, making it a rather remote area with limited access. To reach this location, one must travel over 6 miles on village roads after leaving the main highway, which includes sections of concrete paths and rough dirt roads. Therefore, if the person was not from Zhuyang, it would be difficult to find this spot for disposing of a body. The special task force concluded that at least one of the two individuals, either the victim or the suspect, must have been familiar with the area's terrain and environment, or perhaps even lived in Zhuyang village. As a result, the police conducted a thorough check of all households in Zhuyang village, which has over 2,000 residents, and extended the search to 21 surrounding villages to see if there were any missing persons or unusual circumstances. After searching throughout Zhuyang village, the police found no valuable information. The task force then expanded the investigation to the entire city of Weifang and even neighboring cities like Juba and Dong'an, yet they found no missing persons matching the characteristics of the female victim found in the Siwan River. With no clues left behind by the perpetrator at the scene, the police could only focus on identifying the victim to solve the case. But considering the victim had been deceased for at least a month and a half, why had no one searched for her or reported her missing? Could it be that no family member, friend, or co-worker noticed her absence? The police deduced that the deceased might have been a worker or freelancer from another area who had come to Weifang for work and had little contact with family. Thus, they focused on checking groups of out-of-town laborers working in Weifang, particularly looking for individuals who suddenly stopped working without notice or renters who abruptly terminated their leases. Meanwhile, technicians closely examined the large suitcase, which measured 24 inches in length. The suitcase had been submerged in river water for so long that all traces, such as fingerprints or DNA of the perpetrator, had been washed away. However, investigators examined the suitcase thoroughly and found that its lining fabric, including the zipper on the inner pocket, was in excellent condition, appearing almost brand new. The suitcase's 4 wheels showed very minimal friction and were barely worn down. This suggested the suitcase was very new, likely bought specifically for the purpose of concealing the body and discarding it in the river. Through the brand logo on the suitcase, police tracked down the manufacturer, a factory specializing in producing luggage items located in another province, in the town of Xiangqiang, Baoding County, Hebei Province. Police immediately dispatched a team to Hebei for further information. The factory manager informed the police that they produced quite a few suitcases of this model. However, only 23 units of the 24-inch size, like the one police were investigating, had been produced. Production records, which are maintained for calculating workers' pay, indicated that the batch was manufactured in March 2018. This news brought a sense of relief to the police team. If hundreds or thousands of identical suitcases had been mass-produced, the investigation would have been far more challenging and time-consuming. However, tracing just over 20 suitcases would be much more manageable. According to the shipment records, these 23 suitcases were mostly sold in bulk to various retail outlets, including some in Shandong. Of the 23 suitcases, the task force located 19 that were still on display in stores. 2 more were sold to acquaintances of a shop owner, so the police went to their homes to verify and found that both suitcases were still in use by the buyers. This left a total of 21 out of 23 suitcases accounted for. The remaining 2 suitcases were sold individually to customers at a store in Guangyan County, Shandong Province. These last 2 suitcases had not been traced yet. The task force deduced that the suitcase connected to the case was likely one of these 2 untraced units, suggesting that it had been purchased from the retail store in Guangyan County. Unfortunately, the store didn't have any security cameras, so even though the purchase had taken place within the past month, the police had no way of gathering details or identifying information about the buyer. The luggage store in Guangyan County, where the suitcase was sold, is about 43 miles from Zhuyang village, where the victim's body was discovered. The police connected these 2 points to form a straight line, treating it as a diameter, and began their investigation in a circular area around this line. With the cooperation of local police, they investigated local missing persons cases and visited numerous businesses and factories to gather information on individuals who had abruptly quit their jobs, but they still couldn't find anyone matching the victim's description. The Guangyan area has many large industrial parks and a significant number of workers from other regions, making the pool of individuals to investigate vast. This presented significant challenges for the task force, as the investigation was time-consuming and complex, without yielding any breakthrough information to help solve the case. After a period of unsuccessful investigation aimed at identifying the victim in the area, the police held a meeting and made a bold decision. After carefully assessing the river's current, water depth, and the location where the body was disposed of, they decided to block off both ends of the river section and drain the water to search for evidence on the riverbed. Although this plan would require considerable labor, resources, and finances, and offered no guarantee of useful findings, the investigation would likely hit a dead end without it. The police decided to take this relatively risky step, using an excavator and 3 water pumps to carry out the plan. As the water was being drained from the river section, the investigation team continued searching for clues to the victim's identity. They went to factories, businesses, restaurants, stores, and rental housing around Juyang village. At a factory in Juyang, the police obtained information about a missing woman. Several workers mentioned that in early April, a 28-year-old factory worker named Yang Lian had suddenly stopped coming to work and had not been reachable since. Based on descriptions from her co-workers, Yang Lian had long brown-dyed hair and was about 5 feet 1 inch tall, closely matching the victim's characteristics. After searching for Yang Lian's name and birth date in the national database, the police finally made contact with Yang Lian, who was in Hebei. It turned out that due to some personal relationship issues in Juyang, she had returned to her hometown after leaving her factory job and had changed her mobile phone number. This change led her former co-workers to believe that she had cut off contact. At this point, the police received a new lead. Not long ago, a hot spring bathhouse in the area, which had been operating fairly well, suddenly closed around mid-April. Villagers reported that the bathhouse owner moved everything out overnight. Moreover, locals who frequented the hot spring bathhouse informed the police that the cashier was a young woman named Lu Fan, about 26 or 27 years old, standing around 5 feet 3 inches tall, with brown hair highlighted with blonde streaks, closely matching the victim's description. A few days before the bathhouse closed, Lu Fan stopped coming to work, and people recalled that, shortly before quitting, she had a heated argument over the phone with someone about money. The police called the bathhouse owner, Liu Yan, and requested his cooperation to learn more about the cashier and the bathhouse's activities before it closed. However, upon realizing the caller was from the police, Liu Yan became irritated and refused to cooperate. After this call, Liu Yan ignored all further attempts by the police to contact him. The police found Liu Yan's residence in Daguang village, about 9 miles from Juyang. When officers arrived at his home, he remained guarded, silent, and unwilling to answer any questions. Checking Liu Yan's records, police discovered that he had a criminal history, including charges of theft due to gambling debts. He was divorced, with his children living with their mother. Though his hot spring bathhouse was bringing in business and stable income, his gambling habit left him struggling to cover daily expenses, let alone child support payments. The police considered him a relatively high-risk suspect. It eventually took a court-ordered mandate to get Liu Yan to cooperate during questioning. He explained that he'd been fined multiple times by local police in the past for offenses ranging from theft to violations during the operation of his bathhouse, which made him feel wary and reluctant to interact with law enforcement. Liu Yan also added that he closed the bathhouse because he was behind on rent and still owed Lu Fan, his cashier, overdue wages. Just days before the bathhouse shut down, Lu Fan argued with him over the phone about her unpaid wages. She even took all the day's earnings to cover what he owed her before quitting and leaving town. From Liu Yan's remaining employee records, he provided Lu Fan's contact information to the police, who confirmed that Lu Fan was indeed alive and had moved on to a job elsewhere. This meant that 2 of the people previously suspected missing had both been located, yet the identity of the body in the suitcase remained unknown. Meanwhile, after 4 days of continuous effort to drain nearly 40,000 cubic meters of water from this river section, the riverbed finally began to emerge. Due to the thick mud, police could stand and search directly in the shallow areas near the bank. However, in deeper, muddier sections toward the middle of the river, officers placed construction planks on the mud and used shovels and other farming tools to sift through the riverbed carefully, and the police's efforts finally paid off. About 100 feet from the spot where the body was found, they discovered various items, which you can see on the screen. A key, a blue left sandal, 2 pairs of socks, a pair of earphones, a fairly new quilted leather handbag with a metal strap, and several other small items, including a pink comb, a pair of sunglasses, and multiple bank cards from under the river. Of course, we can't say for sure that all these items belong to the victim. Some may have been discarded by others. However, among the recovered items, the most valuable to the investigation were the bank cards. The police took these cards to the issuing banks to verify the account holder's identity. They discovered all of the cards belonged to a 29-year-old woman named Wu Yanyu from Minzhou Village, Huiming County, Shandong Province. Looking at her profile photo, as you can see, she was wearing a thin red jacket over a white t-shirt with blue sleeves. This t-shirt closely matched the color and style of the one found on the body in the Siwan River. Based on the registered address, the task force quickly contacted Wu Yan's parents and visited their home to conduct a DNA comparison. They confirmed the victim was indeed Wu Yan, a woman who had traveled far from Huiming County for work. The victim's parents told the police that Wu Yan had been married once, but due to numerous conflicts and her in-laws' harsh treatment, she divorced in 2013. Since then, she had worked away from home, occasionally sending money back to her parents. Wu Yan had no children and no desire to remarry, preferring a simple and free life without attachments. In contrast to Wu Yan's wishes, her parents and relatives constantly pressured her about marriage, often arranging blind dates, which made Wu Yan uncomfortable and reluctant to visit home. Some years, even during the Lunar New Year, Wu Yan would not come back, opting to call her parents to wish them well and send additional money. Because of this, her family was accustomed to her absence, with Wu Yan usually being the one to initiate contact. Her family, frustrated that she hadn't married by age 29, rarely called her unless it was something particularly important. So, when the police arrived, the family was shocked. They hadn't been in touch with Wu Yan for the past month and a half and couldn't believe she had been brutally murdered and thrown into a river. The last place Wu Yan worked before she disappeared was not in Juyang, where her body was found, but at a factory in Guangyan County, Shandong. Interestingly, Guangyan County is also where the store sold the 2 suitcases matching the one found in the Siwan River that remained unverified. Now that all the clues were coming together, the police knew they were close to solving this case. The police returned to Guangyan County and visited the factory where Wu Yan had worked. Factory records showed she had been dismissed on April 25th due to a company policy that automatically terminates employees absent for more than 7 days without explanation. An HR staff member informed the police that Wu Yan had been absent since April 17th. This aligned with the forensic estimate that Wu Yan died in mid-April. During their investigation at the factory, the police learned from Wu Yan's co-workers, who shared dormitories with her, that she had many admirers. She was described as slim, very beautiful, hard-working, and skilled in conversation. Apparently, she had been dating a man from another county around the time she went missing. The two had rented a place outside the factory complex to live together, and she only occasionally returned to her dormitory. However, no one knew who this man was, which county he came from, or where the rented room was located, as Wu Yan was highly private about her personal life. She rarely discussed her relationships, leaving almost no information about him. Given that her body was found in a secluded section of the river in Juyang, investigators suspected the man might be from Juyang Village. They reasoned that the person who dumped her body must have been highly familiar with the area to navigate to this remote river section. The task force launched an investigation into Wu Yan's social connections, focusing especially on individuals from Juyang. Most of her acquaintances were from Pinzhou, Xianing, and Guangnian, except for one man from Juyang, a 23-year-old named Mao Xiang, who was reportedly close to Wu Yan. Records showed that he also worked in Guangnian. When police visited the factory where Su Mao worked, HR staff informed them that he too had been absent since April 17th. Although the two had worked at different factories, both had disappeared without notice on the same day, one ending up dead and the other missing. This reinforced the police's suspicion that Su Mao might be the killer. Further investigation revealed that Su Mao's last ATM withdrawal was in Guiyi County, Shandong Province, so the police dispatched officers to Guiyi to track down the suspect. They discovered that Su Mao's uncle also lived in Guiyi. At 4 a.m. on June 9th, while the village was still silent, the special task force swiftly surrounded the uncle's house, apprehending the suspect on the spot while he was still asleep. Confronted by police, Su Mao confessed on the spot that he had indeed killed Wu Yan. Su Mao handed over the murder weapon he had kept with him, a dagger. Following Su Mao's arrest, police obtained a statement in which he confessed and led them back to the rental unit where he had lived with Wu Yan in Guangnian. It was a small room, barely large enough to fit a table, a bed, and a wardrobe. The room was quite messy. Here, forensic technicians found 12 dried bloodstains on the walls and bedsheets. DNA tests confirmed that these bloodstains all belonged to Wu Yan. According to Su Mao's account, the incident took place at 1 a.m. on April 17, 2018. Though it was late, Wu Yan and Su Mao were still arguing over issues from the previous evening. She had suggested breaking up, criticizing Su Mao for earning less, being careless about others, living messily, and being lazy. Although they lived together, Wu Yan shouldered most of the living expenses while Su Mao's salary was nearly spent on his own personal needs. As a result, they had argued frequently about money and Su Mao's lack of responsibility in their shared life. Though Wu Yan was 6 years older than Su Mao, she was very attractive, energetic, and hardworking, drawing attention from many admirers, including those with far better financial standing than Su Mao. Because of this, he believed that Wu Yan wanted to break up as an excuse to pursue a new relationship. Wu Yan, however, accused Su Mao of never owning up to his faults and always blaming others. She started packing her belongings, planning to leave that night, but when Su Mao's attempts to make her stay failed, he grabbed a dagger and repeatedly stabbed her in the neck. After the murder, Su Mao cleaned up the crime scene. By noon, he went to a nearby luggage store to buy a large suitcase for Wu Yan's body. Since she was petite, standing at only 5 feet 1 inch and weighing 99 pounds, he wrapped her body in several layers of plastic bags, tying them securely. That night, he transported the suitcase on his motorcycle to the Siwan River in Juyang village, where he threw it into the river. He also tossed her other belongings, like her sandals, handbag, and bank cards, into the water. Su Mao knew the area well, as the river was near his home. Afterward, he quit his job, left his rented room, and hid at his uncle's home in Guiyi County until his capture. In November 2018, Su Mao was sentenced to death, paying the ultimate price for his crime. In this case, Wu Yan was repeatedly subjected to the control of others, whether from her family or from the man she loved. She had argued with her boyfriend numerous times, hoping Su Mao would change and become more responsible. Yet, rather than improving, Mao Xiang blamed her for wanting to break up to pursue someone else, and when Wu Yanyu decided to end things, he brutally murdered her. Any justification of love for this crime is simply an excuse. It was a selfish, possessive kind of love. True love would want the other person to be happy, fulfilled, and safe. Each person lives their own life, and happiness or sorrow is something they alone can experience. We cannot impose our ideas on others under the pretense of wanting the best for them. Every individual has a unique inner world, faces different issues, and has their own ways of thinking. What about you? What do you think of this perspective? Leave your thoughts below in the comments section of this video. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.